Hello everyone, this is author Saif Ur Rahman of the fantasy fiction novel series, the Nucle Saga. Today I have a very special video for all of you. It's been 3 years since I have launched my book 2. It was around the same date, which is 2nd of August 2018. And in today's special and exclusive video, I will be addressing some questions that have been posted to me over this past few months and some of the readers who personally connected with me. So without further ado, let me start with the series of questions. And here goes something. Okay, the first question that I have here right now is this. What are the updates on the third book? Okay. What are the updates on the third book? Well, I've been asked updates regarding my literary projects for quite a while, and I'm pleased to know that my third book is no exception. And the third book was completed in 2 years instead of 5 in book 2 and 7 in the case of book 1. In fact, I finalized writing the manuscript of the third book last year. It was one of the fastest writing projects that I had undertaken. And I read this quote by Stephen King, that once a potential author are done with their respective literary project, they can close the project, take a break, come back to it later with a fresh pair of eyes. And perhaps I've taken that too seriously. I'm stuck in this limbo where I'm not proceeding further when it comes to editing the manuscript. It should ideally not take more than 1 month, but I've been procrastinating when it comes to wrapping up the third book. And there's this pandemic that has been raging around the world, and again, we all are undergoing through some very rapid transitions in our personal lives. The same with me as well. It has made it difficult for me to be motivated to just like kind of wrap it up. So yes, the third book, it's going to be the final in the Nucle Saga series. There was this another pet project that I wish I had completed. But the thing is, like, I hate to say that my book series, they did not create much of a following as like how I initially expected. Man, at this point, I'm not being bitter, but rather just complacent. I respect my readers' choice and their preference to invest in a story or not. Okay, so the next question is, book pronunciation, do you consider renaming it? This has been a rather controversial and tiny bit disappointing discussion for me, because 9 out of 10 people mispronounce my book title, and I used to think it would drive me crazy if people mispronounce my own name. But now I've discovered that it vexes me more when people mispronounce my literary project more than my name's pronunciation. And so for all of those who are watching this interview, I want to keep the record straight for all of you. Okay, it is not pronounced Nucle Saga. It does not rhyme with the word with knuckles. The word actually has been derived from the keyword nucleus, and the pronunciation that I would rather prefer you all to address the title as the Nucle Saga. And yes, I do sometimes wonder whether, uh, as well as consider as well, whether should I have kept a much easier name for my book series? And thinking back, I do feel that maybe I might have done a mistake in this regards. If I would have the opportunity to reboot my book series, I would prefer the series as the child of Star trilogy, because it more or less means the same thing. The word nuclei would not have been dropped. But at least people would remember my literary project with much ease. So therefore, I do not blame people for mispronouncing my work, but rather this is all on me. I point the fingers at myself because I kept a difficult title and I thought it would work out, but I guess I might be wrong or I might be right. Time will tell. Okay, the next question is, given the opportunity, would you opt for your books to be a movie or a television series? Okay, that's an interesting question. Um, okay, so I've seen movie adaptations of the book that are absolutely perfect, and there are some that are not faithful to the comics or to the book series. And I see this comparison that people make between books and movies, and frankly I was among those people as well. But my perception regarding this particular notion, it has changed, because now I feel a director should have some level of creative liberty to mold the story according to their interpretation. Every interpretation is different, even for the book readers themselves. We have to respect that. And now I feel it's unfair to criticize some movie adaptations, because there are like a lot of factors and constraints that they have to walk around with. They might, I don't know, maybe have a tight budget, may not have that necessarily expensive VFX special effects team. They give countless reasons I can think of, and I may never know of. For me, the only complaint would be is that typically movies last anywhere between 1 to 2 hours, and I believe that's not enough time for the characters to really bring out their personality and character. It's not impossible. We have seen that. Case in point, I mean, I don't want to cite here anything, but I'm saying it's difficult. Therefore, I would not prefer my book series to be adapted. I would prefer rather my book series to be adapted into a television series. And I, for one, would not be big on special effects, because for me, the heart of the story is the characters, and as long as justice is served in that particular department, I would be more than happy. Okay, the next question is the third book final? Okay, so again, I'm sort of reasserting myself. So this has been a consistently asked question. Is the third book final? Is the third book final? So yes, it's final. I've decided to wrap up the fantasy fiction series, because I dedicated like 15 years of my life. Like, I was a small child when I started working on this, and now that I've transitioned into adulthood with the same literary project. And I tried to write into different genres, but it was not possible to toggle between two different states of mind. And sometimes I feel that uh, I may not be able to write something of the real and practical world, because there are so many rules and so many factors that I have to match. And to maintain that consistency, it's far greater challenge in writing a book in fantasy fiction. I have invested a lot of my thought and my imagination into this book series. I'm afraid I would not be able to showcase in all its glory and entirety. You know, uh, at the end of the day, it does seem to be like maybe a sad state of affair. However, having said that, like, it's all right, it's okay, because there are so many stories out there that remain incomplete, and I just feel incredibly lucky that I was able to complete and finish something which some people may not have succeeded in. And the book series is, if it would have been like a genuine phenomenon that people would be interested in my story, want to know more, of course I would be happy to spend more time writing from the same universe, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. And sometimes I honestly I feel that my tempo for writing is eventually going to erode and transform into something else. So I don't think there are any more work in this particular book series. However, uh, for I know for a fact that they are not like a fan base for my book, except for perhaps my close friends or family members who unconvincedly tell me that they love my work. Yes, I'm critical about the work I engage in. The Nucle Saga is my magnus opus, but to answer this question in a nutshell, yes, the third book is the last work in this book series. Okay, so I will transition into uh, different sets of questions here. Okay. Okay, again, the same kind of question. Is the third book final? I've already addressed this. My comments on the third book. Okay, I could go ahead with this one. Okay. So I'm having like an heartful dialogue here in terms of how I feel about my work. So I wrote my third book with a heavy heart, knowing that this is the last time I will be uh, penning this down. It was important for me to conclude the work in a satisfactory tone without like dragging or like stretching it, and that means like I attempt to address unanswered questions and sort of like close all the loose ends. I'm not really sure whether I managed that, but that was primarily my focus as an author. And as well as like like my readers gain a degree of closure once they have completed reading my third book. um it was also about completing the character arcs, winding up any kinds of foreshadowing. Again, it was not easy. Again, I do not know whether I've succeeded in that. My readers, you are my judge. Please tell me once you do happen to read my third book, whenever that's going to happen. So like the thing is like the first book was, I mean, the tone was so much lighter, right? And the second book was, so it was comparatively dark. If I like lay down all my books and if I make a comparison between all my books, right, I would definitely say that the final book, the one that I'm going to publish, the third book, it is going to be it's going to be the darkest among the three, almost to a point. Whereas there's no humor, okay, and the ending was planned to be much more darker. But then I know at the very last moment I decided to have like a bitter sweet ending. It was quite a task for me because I did not want everything to crashing go crashing down and the readers feel like, oh, what was the freaking point of all this? And then, as well as the end in a typical cliche. And the readers they are reminding like, this is the same pattern no matter which book we read. Now, I want to strike a balance between those two extremities. And I swear to God, it has been difficult. But then, I realized that you cannot please everyone. So might as well go with the original ending with some modifications, right? Yeah, okay. Okay, one more, the same, I've gotten same questions, so I'm just shedding light on like the different aspects. Now, someone asked me the ending of the book, is there a way I could elaborate it in terms of themes? Okay, all right, okay, I could do that. I could definitely do that. All right. Okay. Well, uh, the central theme of my first two books has been, number one, the consequences of choice, the choice that we take every single day of our life, and of course the effects of war. I attempted to treat the third book as like a mere extension to the second book. And yet, now that I am reflecting back, I feel it has so many undertones and messages that they are a far departure from like the central theme of the first and the second book. I mean, there is some correlation, of course. There has to be some levels, some sense of continuity. But the thing is, like, there is some serious stuff going on in the third book. Like, what I'm talking about is there lies one of this very elusive and constant facets of life, which is death itself. We try to avoid speaking about it or thinking about it. You know, that's like one constant that is there since the time we have been born. And moreover, there is this certain processing when it comes to this rather uncertain certainty. And this stems from my own experience. I may have channeled that processing to some extent in my third book by killing off some characters. It was bound to happen, right? Okay, there were deaths in the first book and the second book. Are there deaths in the third book as well? Well, naturally, yeah, there are some people who are going to I mean, they will pass away in the third book. Of course, not a lot many characters. I don't want to spoil it, but there is this one character, primary character. Um, they they passed away. Like, the death of this primary character was unplanned, to be honest. It was very abrupt. For spoiler reasons, I do not want to reveal the identity of that character. All I can say is, that character is one of the most bravest that I have penned down. Okay. And just like death can be so abrupt and unexpected, so was this character's death unexpected. It was like, kind of improvised at the very last moment. And when I completed that passage, it it broke me down. It was very upsetting for me, though the character does not exist. It's all in my imagination. It was it was very difficult to kill that person. I was so upset that I cried. Um, and anyone listening to me right now will be like, come on, give us a break. But this character had like aspirations and dreams, and I was so sad for it to end it that way. because I was part of their journey. Just it's so difficult for me in beside being a writer to explain all this, but it was difficult is all I'm saying. Okay, so a couple of fan theory questions. Wow, I love when people propose fan theories. First fan theory is, are the twins the children of the emperor? Okay. Well, I would not classify it as a fan theory because according to like Zindor's doubts and interpretation, is also like implied by Grindrer in the second book that it might be the case also. But fear not, light would be shed on this particular subject very early on in the third book. So like when you start reading the third book, it's going to be addressed very early on. So it's not going to be like a cliffhanger. There won't be any cliffhangers. The series is going to end eventually. Okay. Another theory, is Rohya connected to the Grindrer's lineage? That's a very out of the box fan theory. Okay, it's interesting. I'll give it that, but I want to go on record to dispel this. Okay, no, Rohya is not connected to any royal lineage, but rather she is adopted girl who happens to be a Gladinian. That is something wonderful about Rohya. Her resilience and strength. It does not radiate just because she belongs from a very rich or a very euphorically powerful bloodline. No, and I've kept her origins unresolved and unknown because I want her to represent the notion that it's not a lineage that determines a person's strength and their character, but their actions. Okay, next question is, who is my favorite character? Okay, my favorite character, they cycle throughout the time I write. For now, at this particular instant, I like all my characters, but my admiration would go to Isha. She is a character that I love. I don't know even if that's the thing, but I have come to love her. Of course, she's like a figment of my imagination. I've never seen anyone as close to her character in my life. Seen some shades though, but never close approximation. So my answer is, yeah, I really I adore Isha. Okay, which character is like me? To be honest, initially I used to think that all the primary characters are like the manifestation of my own personality. But then that was just the case maybe in the starting of my first book. Now they are completely different from the way how I am. So most of them are not, but I would say that Zindor is somewhat, not like completely, um, similar to me, because the way he takes initiatives, his thought process, and the way he views his life, it's kind of similar to the way how I am, but it's again, it's same but different. Get it? You've seen the very famous meme, right? It's same but different. So same answer for this particular question. uh, I would say one thing here, but I'm going on a tangent, but Zindor is like an incredibly brave character. He is a leader. He has a vision. Okay, he knows what's at stake here. He knows that he can pass away in strange lands, that death can happen to him anytime. He knows the risks. He knows the immense odds that he is facing because he's a singular person, and a single person can't change the status quo, right? I mean, he's powerful. In the second book, he has come to a point where he's incredibly powerful, but still it doesn't, I mean, he doesn't have like a follow. He is a leader between his own uh, group of friends. And of course, the second book, there has been a partition, but he does not have like a distinct followers that that can help him in transforming the status quo. Not like the way how Erober has followers. They're very loyal. They respond to his calling. They understand him. They are willing to give in their lives for the cause of what Erober is preaching and calling for. It's not the same with Zindor, but the thing is like Zindor, again, he's like different compared to Radar. And I know that the second book, a lot was happening in Zindor's life, and Radar, he kind of took like the backseat. But in the third book, uh, Radar will have a very significant role to play. He has a lot of uh, limelight casting on him in the third book, which I'm very happy because I wanted to balance it out. By when I wrote the second book, there was an imbalance in terms of more focus towards Zindor, but since these two twins are the protagonists in my book series, so I think I might have pulled off that balancing act for sure. Okay, I love going on tangents for my literary project, but like coming back to the question, which is which characters like me, I would say to a certain extent, it's Zindor. Okay, so the next question is: why are readers like us intrigued by Nebu, and why do you think it is so? Okay, so to be honest, it does not surprise me at the very least, because, for example, I am fascinated with characters like Darth Vader from Star Wars. And I think like a Nebu is like a perfect example of a great character who comes in this like ambiguous zone, and I think that's partly because we all know that the people around us they're not exactly black or white, but rather they have this mixed traits of features. Perhaps we see that semblance and the people around us, and most importantly within ourselves too. Yeah, I would say that as well. And when you can correlate with something with that level of frequency, you unwittingly establish a bond of interest with them. That's the reason maybe people are so interested in Nebu. Okay, so I think I have addressed quite a fair bit of questions here. I'll take in the very last question here. Okay, what is next for the author of the Nucle Saga? Well, I'm not really sure, but let's see how it goes. I'm not really sure. I honestly I want to take a break from writing, concentrate on things that they have a better rate of returns than investment. I'm not talking about finance here, but the emotional investment that you have and the returns you need that, and sometimes it becomes a point of demotivation for me. I have to be honest, I have several literary projects lined up after the book series. I'm not really like kind of motivated to write because it's like costing a big chunk of me, my mental sanity and my time. So I need to have my own pace. Again, I need to tell this out aloud to everyone that I have to have my own natural pace in terms of resolving how I write any literary project for that matter. If it takes time, let it take as much as time that it should, because you write it once and then there is a very little scope for revisions, right? So sometimes like when I reflect back, like should have my first book been a little bit different, because now I feel it's a little childish, a little bit cliche, but would I like to change it? No, I would not, because the first book, it reflects my state of mind at that point, so it it's perfectly preserved that, right? The second book as well, I'm very much pleased with the plot of the second book. Like I felt a great sense of satisfaction Of course, the writing style also, I asked a lot of people whether it has changed. Many people said that it definitely did, and they like the second book much more than my first book, which for me it's a good thing. It's a compliment. And with that, I would like to conclude this particular exclusive video for all of you. I have addressed quite a bit for my third book and discuss a lot of issues, a lot of topics. And I wish I could do more, but then, I don't want to stretch this particular video. Maybe sometime soon. I do hope to launch the book maybe by the end of this year or next year. It's completed though, but I need to take my own time, and it will eventually complete a chapter of Nucle Saga, not just for me, but for all of you. And if you all have been sticking out till here, listening to me, then thank you very much. I appreciate it, and hope that for all of us, the sailing in the nucleus is going to come to a beautiful end. Thank you, everyone, and I wish you all a very pleasant day / evening, whatever time zone you're in. Take care and be safe.